What if Earth's not the whole story? Some people think a past civilization didn't just vanish, it escaped, slipping into space or underground. From strange structures on the moon to secret bases and a possible history of repeating collapses, do we have proof that a civilization escaped our planet? You've probably heard of this one. The Great Reset theory says that powerful people, politicians, billionaires, shadowy elites are all working behind the scenes to reshape the world. And not just on an economic or political level, but everything, a total overhaul. Now, this theory has been around for a long time, but it really blew up during the pandemic, especially when the World Economic Forum actually launched an initiative called the Great Reset. It was about rethinking the global economy after the situation, but for some folks, it confirmed their worst fears, that these global players were using this crisis to tighten their grip on power. Now, leaving 2020 and onward aside to discuss the Great Reset on a larger scale, though, what if there's already been a Great Reset? What if we've been through this before? What if there was a highly advanced society that got wiped out or bailed after their own version of a Great Reset? Some people even think the whole idea of a breakaway civilization isn't a new concept at all. It's just the same cycle repeating. A few get too powerful, the system collapses or changes drastically, and the people with the know-how, well, they vanish. In this case, possibly off-world. It's a stretch, sure, but it's also not impossible. If you were a civilization about to hit the self-destruct button, where would you go? Mars is far, deep space, too risky, but the moon? Well, that's right in our backyard. There is a long-running theory that the moon might not just be a chunk of rock, that it could have once served as a refuge for ancient people. The idea is that a highly advanced civilization saw the writing on the wall, whether it was a looming natural disaster, a massive war, whatever, and they got out while they could. Supporters of this theory point to weird stuff seen on the moon. For example, the Blair Cuspids, a group of sharp tower-like structures photographed by the lunar orbiter in 1966. To some, the way they're aligned just doesn't look natural. Then there's the transient lunar phenomenon, flashes of light or odd glows on the moon that have been reported for centuries. Some scientists say they're due to gas escapes or meteor hits, but others wonder if we're seeing activity from something less explainable. Could there be hidden bases tucked away in craters or underground tunnels up there? If a civilization was advanced enough to get off the planet, the moon would make for a pretty decent first stop. Let's stay in that hidden away mindset for a second. Whether it's under the Earth or off in space, there's a ton of talk about secret bases, places where advanced civilizations might still exist or once did. Ever heard of Agartha? It's this supposed underground city deep beneath Earth's surface, usually described as being full of enlightened beings with amazing technology. Stories about Agartha go way back, and while there's no proof it exists, people have claimed to find entrances in places like the Himalayas, the Amazon, and Antarctica. Then there are the off-world bases. According to some conspiracy theorists and supposed whistleblowers, we already have bases set up on the moon and Mars. Some human-made, some not. They say these are used for secret experiments, deep space research, or as escape zones for the ultra-elite. Maps aren't the first thing that comes to mind when you think about lost civilizations, but some of them are just too strange to ignore. One of the most famous is the Piri Reis map, created in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral named Piri Reis. Now, there's always been a lot of talk about this map because it seems to show the coastline of Antarctica without ice. Now, Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until the 1800s, and even then it was covered in ice. So how did someone in the early 1500s not only know Antarctica was there long before the place was thought to be discovered, but also know that it wasn't always a frozen wasteland? The map doesn't look like guesstimating either. It lines up surprisingly well with modern satellite scans of the coastline. Skeptics say that maybe Piri Reis copied from older maps that were copied from even older ones, but that just kicks the question down the road. Who made the original map? And how did they get such accurate data? Well, one theory is this. Maybe there was an advanced civilization thousands of years ago that explored the world, possibly even from the sky, and charted it all out before disappearing from history. Maybe they became so advanced they just left Earth altogether. History is full of civilizations that were at the absolute peak of humanity for the time, and then one day, they were just gone. The Maya, the Indus Valley, Göbekli Tepe, some would say Atlantis, each had elaborate cities, technology, and culture. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, they either collapsed or just walked away from it all. Sure, scholars have explanations: climate change, droughts, war, disease, and yeah, those all make sense, but in some cases it feels like those answers are just patches, like we're guessing. Take Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. It's over 11,000 years old and full of massive carved stones arranged in circles. And what's weird is, after putting so much work into building it, the people who made it buried it on purpose. Not abandoned, buried. Why would anyone do that? Well, some people think these disappearances weren't because of collapse, they were planned exits. Maybe these civilizations didn't vanish, maybe they moved on. And if they had the capability or help from extraterrestrial visitors, maybe that meant heading to space. Here's where things get extra weird, as if they aren't already weird. The Black Knight satellite is this alleged object orbiting Earth that some believe has been up there for 13,000 years or more. Think about that, long before humans ever got off the ground. The legend began in the 50s when people claimed the US military had detected a satellite when none should have existed. In 1998, the story resurfaced again when astronauts on the STS-88 mission took photos of a strange dark object floating above Earth. NASA says it was a thermal blanket that drifted away during a spacewalk, but if you look at the photos, it definitely doesn't look like a blanket. Believers say the Black Knight could be an ancient probe, either alien or, and this is key here, that it may have been built by a civilization from Earth that reached space long before us, sending a satellite into orbit that's been watching Earth ever since. Now, as for why NASA would be hiding it, I mean, that's anyone's guess. I'm just here to make YouTube videos for your entertainment, but if an advanced ancient society did leave Earth, it would make sense to leave something behind to keep an eye on things. Everyone loves a good UFO story, but some of them go beyond lights in the sky. We're talking about craft that defy physics, like making 90-degree turns at insane speeds, hovering without propulsion, or just disappearing. The 2004 USS Nimitz Tic Tac incident is one of the most famous cases of this. Pilots saw this smooth white pill-shaped object darting around. It had no wings, no exhaust, and moved in ways nothing built by humans can. Well, what if things like this mysterious object aren't alien ships, but human technology from a breakaway civilization that left Earth long ago? Maybe they show up every now and again to check on us, observe how life is evolving here on Earth. Let's talk about Mars. Evidence suggests it might have been habitable a long time ago. There are dry riverbeds, ice deposits, even traces of methane, all signs that the red planet used to be very different. That maybe it could have even housed life. But if so, then where did it all go? Well, Mars is inhospitable now, but maybe ages ago, when Mars was very different than it is today, the beings living there saw the changes happening and left. And where'd they go? Well, possibly here. When the Martians arrived on this planet, they brought their knowledge and technology with them, helping our ancestors advance. Maybe that's where sudden bursts of knowledge and architectural skill came from. Stories of sky gods or beings from the stars show up in mythologies all over the world. Could these just be memories of ancient Martians who settled in and blended with early human societies? Over the years, we've found some pretty bizarre stuff buried in the dirt that seems way too advanced for the time it supposedly came from. Take the Antikythera mechanism, for example. This thing was pulled out of a shipwreck off the coast of Greece and dates back to around 100 BCE. At first glance, it looks like a pile of rusted gears, but once researchers got into it, they realized it was basically an ancient analog computer. They could predict eclipses, track the movement of the planets. It was way ahead of its time. Now, the standard explanation is that some Greek genius figured out how to build this thing using what they had at the time, but that doesn't really explain it all. What if they learned it from someone or something else? And that's not the only example, far from it. In Tanzania's Olduvai Gorge, scientists found 1.5 million-year-old bone tools shaped with an exceptional level of precision. They were more than just sticks sharpened on rocks. They were crafted from hippo and elephant bones in ways that showed some real skill. I don't know, it's just kind of fun to wonder, what if ancient civilizations were more advanced than we give them credit for? Maybe even advanced enough to go somewhere else, if you know what I mean. To bring it all together, let's talk about the breakaway civilization theory. It suggests that at some point in modern history, a small group of humans developed technology far beyond what the rest of us have. Maybe they got it through discovery, maybe through contact with something not from around here. Either way, they kept it to themselves. The idea is that this group broke away, literally and figuratively. They set up their own society, possibly off-planet, and now live in total secrecy. Whistleblowers have claimed that there are secret space programs and alliances with alien species. It sounds pretty nuts, but again, it's fun to think about. If some group had access to clean energy and anti-gravity or faster than light travel, they wouldn't need to stick around. They could go wherever they wanted. And maybe they're watching us right now, waiting to see if we catch up. With all that said, I've been your host James, and I'll catch you, yes you specifically, in the next video.